What's good, YouTube? This video is going to be about 6 things to pay attention to when a guy approaches you and how to tell if a guy's serious in your first few encounters. Women write me all the time about the guys they are talking to. They usually want to know if he sounds like he's serious from their description of him, or does it sound like he doesn't want anything serious. Oftentimes, you can tell from the very beginning what a guy is about. This list touches on a few ideas to keep in mind about the very beginning, from his approach to the first few encounters. Of course, they aren't all absolute, but more often than not, keeping these things in mind will help protect you against a guy who just wants a hookup. Number 1 on this list. Is he super smooth when he approaches you? Is he ultra comfortable, or is he a bit nervous? Does he have a healthy fear? If I was a woman, I wouldn't even respond to a guy who didn't appear just a tad bit nervous when he was approaching me. Sincerity, reverence, and noble intention are more likely to accompany a guy who hasn't mastered approaching women. I would always trust this over some ultra smooth guy who appears to be completely comfortable approaching women or even making sexual advances. Women often cite confidence as one of the deciding factors for how they respond to a guy approaching them. Unfortunately, many women don't realize that the difference between self-confidence and cockiness is a clue of intent. Meaning, they can identify the cockiness, but they often have no clue that it's a direct result of his intended use for them. Though a man's intention can evolve if you play your cards right. Women often ask me when to play hard to get. This is one of those times. If a guy approaches you overconfident and cocky, if you respond at all, don't just play hard to get, actually be hard to get. He's cocky because he disregards your intelligence, your value, and your ability to affect him emotionally. Why would you ever want to entertain a guy who doesn't see you as a potential emotional threat? Caution equals respect, and if a man is not cautious when he approaches you, it's because he lacks a healthy fear or even respect for you. Very few women who sleep with cocky guys before a relationship established ever get more than booty call status. When a guy is a little nervous and a little careful, it's indicative of his respectful impression of you. He cares about your response and how you see him, so his nervousness shouldn't automatically be seen as a lack of self-confidence. That's not always the case. I've approached a lot of women very confident when I didn't care, and I've approached a lot of women very nervously when I cared a lot. It's never been a result of self-doubt. I've never lacked self-confidence. Not kissing my own ass or anything, but I'm a great man, and I've always known that. When I've approached women nervously, it's always because I didn't know if she would recognize how great or how special I could be to her. I didn't know if she could feel my intention or my integrity. It's often not safe to assume she judges those things as highly as certain looks, status, money, or street credibility. Is she wise enough to recognize what's in front of her and value this opportunity? As a guy, you never know. You don't know what kind of guy she's into. Though a man may feel great, he has no idea what a woman might measure as great. After being rejected, underestimated, and disregarded, a good man might lose faith in a woman's ability to see his value. For every woman who's been mistreated, I can show you a man who's been played by a woman for a lesser man. Many times these men have smaller hearts, smaller bank accounts, smaller minds, less integrity, and less potential than the man she did wrong to be with him. All that to say that in not knowing you, the uncertainty that you pick up on when a guy approaches you could be in your judgment and not in himself. Moving on, the next thing that you want to pay attention to when you first meet a guy or in your first few encounters is his tone. Many times, tone can indicate intention, but neutral tones not so much. So ladies, if you notice a man trying to use his bedroom voice when he approaches you or for the first few times you talk to him, he may be a scoundrel. There are 3 reasons men lower their voices when they talk to women. Number 1, they are nervous, which you can usually tell if you pay attention. When I was young and first started approaching women, I kept getting told to speak up. It was so funny looking back because I would practice my lines and then I would walk up to a woman and she would be like, "Huh? What you say?" And then I'd have to repeat myself, which made me all the more nervous. The second reason guys lower their voice when approaching women is they're trying to look more smooth and give the impression of having more confidence than they actually have. That first nervous guy, after some practice, makes it here. Still nervous, but learning how to cover it up. And the third reason that guys may lower their voice or use their bedroom voices when they're talking to you for the first few times or when they approach you is they are confident and they intend on seducing you. Their focus is sexual energy, and so they speak in sexual tones. Guys who are confident but genuine usually don't lower their voice. They don't have to play games with tone. That being said, the bedroom voice is usually a sign that a guy might have sex on his mind. This by itself can be hard to pinpoint, but coupled with the next few signs on this list, it can be a little bit more apparent. So keeping that in mind, the next thing that you want to pay attention to is space. So let's say a guy just approached you. He's using his bedroom voice and also trying to get very close, encroaching on your personal space. He's not in kissing range, but he's closer than the average guy who would approach you. That's a power move. He's testing your physical limits and your personal boundaries. This is also very true of the first few encounters. It's often assumed that if a woman allows a man to flirtatiously enter her personal space without stepping back or reclaiming her intimate zone, then she would likely be open to him physically. This obviously excludes instances where women are too afraid or too intimidated to move back. I'm speaking specifically about flirtatious exchanges. Ladies, be very careful about how close you let a man get to you while flirting unless you want him to think that he can have you. Even I've tested this over and over as a young man, getting closer to a woman to measure my access to her. And no, it's not a creep move. Everybody wants to know how to tell if someone else likes them. For guys, this is one of the cues. As long as a woman's body language was open and she was extending our interaction, I knew that she wanted me in her personal space, or maybe even more. In general, the closer you let guys get, the more they assume you are open to them physically. The more sexually aggressive they may become. A lot of women wonder why so many guys think they are easy. It's often because they aren't creating wide enough spatial boundaries and are often seen chatting and standing too close with numerous guys. A reasonable distance gives a more respectable impression. Guys who go out of their way to get really close to you are usually focused on sex, not just getting to know you. Moving on, the next thing on this list to pay attention to are his compliments. Obviously, you have to pay attention to what's coming out of a guy's mouth. Some good signs for guys who might be a little bit familiar with you are compliments about your energy, your demeanor, or the way you carry yourself. Your attitude, your ideas, your intellect, your talent. And of course, if a guy is seeing you for the first time in his life and approaching you, he's going to point out the obvious. You're beautiful, you're attractive, you're gorgeous. Duh. Or not duh if you're not used to hearing it. So in that case, if you're not familiar with the guy and he's approaching you for the first time, the depth of his first real conversation with you should reveal his intention. And obviously, excessive compliments about your looks aren't always the best sign. He should allude to more than just possessing or conquering your beauty. And to be honest, you should actually take a point out for the words fine, sexy, or hot being used when he approaches you. A man who ultimately wants a relationship is looking for a bit more than those things. Moving on, the next thing that you want to pay attention to when you first meet a guy or in your first few encounters is, what is he offering? A man should be offering to talk, to get to know, and to discover more about you in some way. He should be, through his actions, offering friendship and companionship, not just a good time. Not just trying to have a little bit of fun and see where things go. Let's go for sex, by the way. He shouldn't be just offering to take you out and never accept first dates to bars. When a man gets your number, he needs to be using it to discover you and not just set up the first date. No, it's not asking too much for a phone conversation or a few. If a guy's not willing to talk before a date, why would he be willing to commit before sex? Men whores and players avoid talking to avoid you having an expectation of them. That makes it easier to throw you away after they sleep with you on the first or second date. If a man is unwilling to talk to you and take you on numerous dates before sex, then he was unwilling to have a relationship to begin with. Guys who know they want you will do the work for you. And premature sexual advances are almost always a bad sign, no matter how eloquently they are worded. Yes, this may make you feel sexy and attractive, but his focus on validating you physically is indicative of his disregard for your other values. His quest to discover those should also be very apparent. A booty call ain't a bae, and if all a man offers you is the D and you take it, you have your reward. If you want a relationship, don't take a man into you until he offers you his heart. Moving on, the next thing that you want to pay attention to is his curiosity during your first few conversations. It should be apparent that he wants the first few conversations to be long and successful. A guy who's really interested in you will talk to you until the sun rises if that's what it takes to get to know you or to make an impression. He'll also be genuinely curious to know all the things about you. So, where do you stand politically? What do you do for a living? What ended your last relationship? What kind of guy are you looking for? Are you close with your family? What do you believe in? Do you want kids? How old are your kids? What's your relationship like with your father? How do you like this or feel about that? He'll be curious. I can't tell y'all how many women come to me and say the guy that they are talking to never asks them anything. He just flirts and disappears, a flirty text here or there, and then silence. Listen, ladies, if a man is not curious as to what's in your head and what's in your heart, meaning he doesn't care about what you think and what you feel, he's just after sex. He doesn't care about your thoughts and feelings because he doesn't plan on dealing with them. A man can't get to know you 9 characters at a time asking, "What you doing, sexy?" over and over again. When a man of substance and maturity is measuring you for companionship, he has to vet you like he's filling a job opening. He's got to assess your knowledge, skills, and abilities. He's got to do a social background check. He's got to look for signs of emotional stability or instability. He's got to see how you interact with other guys. He has to figure out if he can trust you and if you're worth being weak for. I remember dating, crossing my fingers, just hoping that a woman would be more than just a pretty face. So, if you don't sense that same concern from a guy, it's likely that he isn't interested in something real. That's all I got for now. Follow me on Instagram at catfic24. I'll get with y'all later.